So what can I say about the movie Playing for Keeps, other than that it was your typical romantic comedy? Well, I can tell you that most critics really didn't like it. I mean, Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 2% rating. That means only 2% of critics liked it. What am I going to give it? A 6 out of 11. And that is being very generous, mind you. I thought this film was going to get a 2-star rating. But anyway, it's got Gerard Butler and Jessica Biel in it, playing George and Stacy, two people who are now divorced, were married, had a son, Louis, and George was a professional soccer player. So, the movie starts with George taking Louis to soccer practice and realizing his coach isn't that good. As a matter of fact, he's just talking on the phone throughout the whole practice, giving wrong information about how to play the game. So George jumps in there and says, "No, no, guys, do it like this." The parents see this, how he's actually paying attention and everything, and helping them, and they call him up and say, "Be our new coach." He says, "Okay." Well, so now what? Well, there are three main focuses to this movie: George's and Louis's relationship, George's and Stacy's relationship, and George's attempt to get a job as a sportscaster. Now, we've got so now he is the coach of the team, and the team's doing good. Stacy is like, "Wow." Don't worry, I'll give a spoiler warning. And as far as the sportscaster goes, things are going okay. I can't go into detail without spoilers. I'll say one more thing without spoilers, and then I'll go into those. You see in the trailers that the reason that Stacy divorced him was he was a ladies' man. What do you expect? He was a professional soccer player. Well, anyway, he's turning over a new leaf now, which is very good. But there are two girls who are still hot for him in this movie, Patty and Barb. And I believe it's Barb, correct me if I'm wrong, that is married to a guy named Carl, who bribes George to put his son in goal and let his wife or daughter, I couldn't tell, sing the national anthem, badly by the way, before each game. So anyway, Carl also confides in him, "I'll do anything for you I need. Just don't let my wife know I cheat on her. I date girls behind her back." Barb comes up, says, "Oh, you don't have to worry about it. I already know." Not when Carl's not there. She says, "I'm just doing the same thing." So you got Barb and Patty who Barb more than Patty tries to go at George, and to the point she actually comes over to his house. And now Carl, as she had mentioned, has her followed sometimes. And George quickly shoots her out thanks to the help of his landlord, giving him some change from his overpayment of his lease on the house. And he shoves her out the door. I should say, she sneaks out the back door after he repeatedly tells her to leave, but not before some pictures are taken. Yeah, she was followed. They didn't know it, but and that doesn't come into play later, after Denise, played by Catherine Zeta-Jones, calls up George and says, "Guess what? You got the job at ESPN." Well, what this means is, and by this point, Stacy is back deeply in love with George. She can't fight it, and she is actually ready to move to Connecticut with George and Louis and call off the wedding with Matt. But at the championship game, that doesn't happen, because this is your typical romantic comedy, so it has to have a big problem happen, which it did. And that was Carl comes up with the pictures of him and Barb, even though nothing happened, there's no sex in this movie. Barb was just undressing, but that's all the pictures that Stacy needs. She comes over to break up the fight between George and Carl, and she sees the pictures. And she can't believe she was even thinking about calling off the wedding, so she doesn't. And it goes back to, he's, now George is only going to get to see Louis a couple times a night. Oh, wait, that's right. He's going to Connecticut, and they're staying in Massachusetts. So, now, well, he's going to see him even less. What else? Well, of course, it's a romantic comedy, so it does have to finish with a happy ending. So, he realizes what he's done, and this was very predictable. He turns around, he goes back. Stacy's fiance, but her fiance Matt says, "You're still in love with him, aren't you?" So she calls off the wedding anyway, and you know, he comes back. They're in love. They stay together. He turns down the job at ESPN. Very predictable that would happen. And, well, that's pretty much how it ends. It does mention that he does end up getting a sportscaster job at his local news station. He ends up co-casting with his friend who is already there. And you know, there are other little things in this movie, like him missing one of his son's goals because he's talking to ESPN on the phone during one of the games. But, you know, that blows over quick, which was kind of a surprise. All in all, if you're going to go see this movie, see it once, and you should be all set. You don't need more than one serving of this. Movie I'll buy? No. Movie I would buy for someone else? Only if I knew that they would like it. Also, it was a little blurry. This could have been my theater, but it was a little blurry. I think this review's gone long enough because really, I don't think there's not much to say about this movie. If you go see it, you'll see what I'm talking about. I pretty much just gave you the whole thing, not even in the nutshell. I cracked the nut right open. That's the story. That's it. That's the movie. So, you've seen the movie. You don't need to go now. Unless you really want to. And, you know, there are some things I may have left out, but it won't be much. And all in all, you know, critics were right. It's not great. Probably something I won't see again. At least not anytime soon.